So typically what I do in these types of reviews is I hold off on announcing what kind of subgenre that this falls into because I don't want there to be really any spoilers in the review for these types of films that I do reviews for. And I hold that until later, much later in the video, and then divulge what that is. And the reason I'm not going to do that this time is because this is really the only intrigue this movie had, and the only reason I watched it as soon as I saw that this was what it was in the description that I was sent when I was sent the screener. That's what made me pull the trigger on it. I don't really have much else of a selling point for the film, so I'm just going to tell you what kind of film it is right now. To spark any interest you might have. This is a time loop movie, which I am a big fan. I'm a sucker of, the time loop style. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Typically, with a lot of the screeners that I'm sent, I pass on a good amount of them. But with this one, as soon as I saw time loop, I was like, yep, I'll take it. And watched it, and here we are. Let's talk about it. You've got a brother and a sister, the brother's girlfriend, and this guy that they pick up at a bar. They're going to this manor to try to find a treasure. When they get there, they are stuck in a time loop. I mean, that's basically all you need to know. Yeah, I thought this was pretty terrible, unfortunately. I hate to use this excuse, and I really do try to hold back on this. But these are scripts. I'm sure this isn't the case, but I guess just because of the prevalence of it right now, it's hard not to feel that it's possible that scripts like this were written by AI. But I don't know, they're just so incoherent to me. Like, they're so devoid of life. But then how do you account for the thousands of other films like that before AI, right? Like, they can't all be AI. But that's kind of how I felt while watching this a bit, where the script was just kind of very lame and tropey and didn't make a ton of sense and lacked any kind of human touch. I don't know, it just felt so hollow. It felt so been there, done that, but not in a way that felt genuine. Like someone who really likes this style, right? Like this premise, this subgenre of time loop movies. There's so many great time loop movies. I've seen so many of them at this point, whether horror or not, right? Palm Springs with Andy Samberg is one I absolutely love. Obviously, everybody knows Groundhog Day. Awesome film. Then there's tons of horror ones like Time Crimes and Triangle, and like there's tons and tons and tons of time loop movies. Predestination's another really cool. That's not exactly time loop, but anyway, if you've seen it, you know. I guess. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I was just in my head about Predestination. The acting in this is okay. It's like amateur, but it's all right. There's character decisions and moments, and kind of like how it's revealed. You're kind of like scratching your head a bit, and I had some questions about it, and I was very unsure about things. The characters themselves are just very bland, not relatable. You don't really understand motivations much. There's some backstory stuff that you get that you're just kind of like, okay, that's in here, and then it doesn't really play into the film that much. This is the laziest like time loop movie I've ever watched. And typically when you do a time, I will admit though, at least with this one, it doesn't fall into the classic tropes of a time loop movie in a lot of ways. But it also doesn't do anything all that interesting. And I think it's a very messy script. And yeah, I couldn't care less while watching it. I was kept waiting for the time loop thing to start happening, and when it does, it's also one of the shortest time loops I've ever seen in a movie. And also, this is pretty typical. You know, there's inaccuracies in the time loop for sure, where like one scene a person comes through a door in like a minute, and then the next scene they seem to come in through the door like 5 minutes later. So that happens, though. I feel like every film is guilty of that. Groundhog Day, all of them. I can point out all sorts of inaccuracies on the time loop issue in Groundhog Day. Um, so I'm not going to really fault the film for that exactly. I know that's just convenience, right? It's just this scene's going to last as long as I need it to for the convenience of the film. But there's so few loops. I was actually pretty shocked by that. I was like, oh, we're like when I looked at the timestamp and I realized there was like 7 minutes left of the movie, I was like, they literally just started the loops. What the fuck? How do you do a time loop movie and don't loop it much? That that seemed wild to me, right? Like you got to go through a lot of iterations. Watch Happy Death Day. I mean, that's one of my favorite time loop movies. And there's, oh my god, how many times does this tree die and replay the day, and how much fun does Christopher Landon have with that script and Happy Death Day to You, right? There's so many iterations and so many funny, clever, like moments of her using the time loop and trying to figure out the mystery, right? Like time loop movies are always centered around mystery. How do I get out of the loop? Right? How the hell do I free myself from this hell? And it takes so many trials and errors, right? And this movie just it doesn't really explain itself very well. As I said, the motivations are lacking. I didn't even honestly understand why they were even there outside of like we were coming for the treasure or whatever. But then once it's kind of explained, I'm like, wait, but why are they there? So I must have missed that. So that's fine if I missed that part, but it doesn't really matter because nothing really interesting happens even after it's found out that they're in a loop. Um, yeah. Anyway, I don't want to sit here and harp on this film too much, but if you're like a time loop enthusiast and you're like, I need to see every time loop movie ever made, then check this out. But otherwise, I am definitely not recommending this one. I thought this was really poor. Uh, Damn, bummer. I almost always like time loop movies to some degree or another, but not this one. This one I have zero liking towards. So, oh boy. All right. Well, I got to go do this review again, and again, and again,